I stared at her text message requesting I babysit, again, and something finally snapped inside me. 3 years of being the convenient aunt, the reliable sister, the family doormat. This time, I simply typed, no. 2 letters that would detonate my entire world. When my family uninvited me from Thanksgiving, I told myself I'd survive the rejection. What I couldn't have known was that my simple boundary would unravel a web of manipulation spanning years. My sister had perfected the art of using people, especially me. The carefully curated social media posts, the sympathetic glances from relatives who believed her lies, the children caught in her web of deceit. I was supposed to be the villain in her story, the selfish sister who abandoned family when needed most. But as I stood in my parents' kitchen, watching my brother-in-law reveal the devastating truth about where she really was that Thanksgiving day, I realized this wasn't about childcare at all. It was about power. And for the first time in my life, I was about to reclaim mine. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. It started with a text message, the kind that makes your stomach drop because you know exactly what it means. Hey sis, hope you're doing great. Quick question. You're still good to watch the kids during Thanksgiving weekend, right? Jake and I could really use a break. Love. You. I stared at my phone, the familiar mix of guilt and resentment bubbling up inside me. My sister Melissa had a way of making requests sound like they'd already been agreed upon. This was the 3rd year in a row she'd pulled this exact same move. I slumped back in my office chair, the glow of my computer screen illuminating my face as I thought back to last Thanksgiving. What Melissa had described as just watching them during dinner had morphed into 3 full days of childcare. Her 4 kids, Lily, Max, Emma, and little Tommy, were sweet enough. But managing a 9, 7, 5, and 3-year-old while everyone else enjoyed the holiday was not how I'd planned to spend my time. I remembered the moment Melissa and Jake had disappeared after the main course, promising to be back in an hour. I'd ended up handling bedtime routines, morning tantrums, meal prep, and endless rounds of, Aunt Katie, I'm bored, while they were mysteriously absent for most of the weekend. My finger hovered over the reply button when my office phone rang. Katie. Wilson? This is Mark. Got a minute? My boss. I straightened in my chair. Yes, of course. Just wanted to give you the good news myself. The Henderson campaign was a hit. The board approved your promotion to senior marketing director, effective immediately. I nearly dropped my phone. After 3 months of 70-hour work weeks, presentations that ran until midnight, and sacrificing my entire personal life, it had finally paid off. Thank you. Wow, thank you. You earned it. Take some time over Thanksgiving to celebrate. We need you back at full strength for the Pearson launch in December. As I hung up, I looked back at Melissa's text with new clarity. This Thanksgiving was supposed to be my first real break in months. I'd been dreaming about reconnecting with family, enjoying actual adult conversations, and maybe having more than 4 hours of sleep. My phone rang again. Melissa. Hey, did you get my text? Her voice had that familiar, sweet but slightly impatient tone. Yeah, just saw it. Listen, Melissa. Great. So you remember you promised back in July, right? When we were at Mom and Dad's for the 4th? I frowned. I don't remember promising anything about Thanksgiving. Oh, Katie, come on, she sighed dramatically. We talked about it on the patio. You specifically said you'd be happy to help out because you know how overwhelming it is for me with 4 kids at these family things. I had no recollection of this conversation, but Melissa had a talent for rewriting history to suit her needs. Besides, she continued, not waiting for my response. You know how crazy things have been for me lately. Tommy's speech therapy, Emma's dance recitals, Max's behavioral issues at school. I'm barely hanging on here, and there it was, the guilt trip. I felt my resolve weakening as she listed her parental struggles. But then I remembered my therapist's words from our last session. Boundaries aren't just about saying no. They're about honoring your own needs, too. I need to call you back, I said abruptly, and hung up before she could protest. I spent the next half hour pacing my apartment, rehearsing what to say. Finally, I took a deep breath and called her back. Melissa, I'm really sorry, but I can't. Watch the kids this Thanksgiving. Silence. Then, you're joking, right? No, I'm not. I've been working nonstop for months, and I really need this break. So you're choosing your break over your family? Her voice had gone cold. That's not what I'm saying. I'm happy to help with the kids during part of the weekend. Maybe we could take turns so everyone gets to enjoy some of the holiday. Turns? She laughed bitterly. Must be nice to have the luxury of taking turns when you don't have 4 children. Depending on you every minute of every day. Melissa, save it. I get it. Your job is more important than family. Message received. She hung up. I sat down hard on my couch knowing exactly what would come next. Sure enough, within an hour, my phone exploded with notifications. Mom. Katie, please call me immediately. Dad. Your sister is very upset. What's going on? Tyler, my brother. Way. To ruin Thanksgiving before it even starts. Sarah, my younger sister. Seriously, Katie? Melissa is crying. I tried calling my mom, hoping to explain, but she wasn't interested in my side. We're doing a family call in 15 minutes, she said tersely. Your father's setting it up. The family call felt more like a tribunal. My parents, brother, and both sisters were on the line, with Melissa audibly sniffling in the background. We're all very disappointed, Katie, my father began, his peacekeeper voice in full effect. Family means supporting each other. I am supportive, I tried to explain. I just can't be the designated babysitter every holiday. Nobody designated you. Anything, my mother cut in. Your sister asked for help during a family gathering. That's what families do. Melissa's voice came through, trembling with emotion. I don't ask for much, Katie. You don't have kids. You don't understand how exhausting it is. I just needed one weekend where I could actually talk to adults and not have to cut someone's food or wipe someone's nose every 5 minutes. What about Jake? I asked. Can't he watch his own kids for part of the time? Jake works hard providing for us, she shot back. He deserves a break too. No mention of my job or my needs, of course. My father cleared his throat. Katie, I think you need to reconsider your position here. If you can't help your sister during a family holiday, maybe... He hesitated. Maybe you should reconsider coming at all. The words hit like a slap. Are you uninviting me from Thanksgiving? No one's uninviting anyone, my mother interjected unconvincingly. We're just suggesting that if you're not in a place to be helpful, perhaps this isn't the right time for you to join us. Melissa didn't speak during any of this. She didn't have to. She'd set the machinery in motion and could now sit back as our family did what they always did, prioritize her needs above everyone else's. Fine, I said finally, my voice tight. I won't come. The call ended shortly after, leaving me alone, in my apartment, uninvited from my family's Thanksgiving for the crime of setting a boundary. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I'd been blocked by most of my family on social media, receiving only a single text from my mom. We hope you take some time to reconsider your priorities. By Thanksgiving week, I had resigned myself to spending the holiday alone. I bought a small turkey breast, some instant mashed potatoes, and a pint of ice cream. A feast for one. My best friend Zoe called Wednesday night. You sure you don't want to come to my parents? They'd love to have you. Thanks, but I'd be terrible company right now. Your family is being ridiculous. You know that, right? I stared out my apartment window at the city lights. Am I the villain here, Zoe? Should I have just said yes? Absolutely not. Melissa's been taking advantage of you for years. It's about time you stood up for yourself. But as I hung up, doubt crept in. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe family meant sacrificing your own needs. Maybe I was the problem. I went to bed that night feeling utterly alone, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. My phone rang at 7:30 a.m. on Monday, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me answer. Hello? Katie? It's Jake Wilson. My brother-in-law's voice caught me completely off guard. In 10 years of him being married to my sister, he'd never once called me directly. Jake, is everything okay? Are the kids— Everyone's fine, he said quickly. I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. Today, if possible. His request was so unexpected, I found myself agreeing before I could think it through. We arranged to meet at a small cafe halfway between my office and his construction company at noon. When I arrived, Jake was already there, fidgeting with a sugar packet. He stood awkwardly when he saw me, as if we were strangers on a blind date rather than family members. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I ordered you a latte. Melissa always says that's what you drink. The mention of my sister hung between us. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. What's this about, Jake? He sighed, running a hand through his sandy blonde hair. I found out about the Thanksgiving thing, about Melissa asking you to watch the kids. I tensed. Look, I'm sorry if she's upset, but no, that's not why I'm here. He leaned forward. I had no idea she asked you to babysit. None. She told me your parents were watching the kids because you were bringing your new boyfriend to Thanksgiving and wanted privacy. I nearly choked on my coffee. My what? I'm not even dating anyone. Jake's expression darkened. Yeah, that's what I figured out when I overheard her talking to Tanya on the phone yesterday. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and slid it across the table. On the screen was a text exchange between Melissa and her friend Tanya. Melissa. All set for Chicago. Katie turned down babysitting, but I worked my magic with the family. They actually uninvited her from Thanksgiving. Tanya. OMG, you're evil, LOL. So it's definitely happening? Melissa. Yep. Told everyone Jake and I need couple time. But he's clueless. I'll say I'm helping Mom with Black Friday shopping. 3 whole days with Eric in Chicago while everyone thinks I'm being a dutiful wife. And mother. Tanya. Better not get caught this time. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking slightly. Who's Eric? Jake took the phone back. Her ex from college, the one before me. He got divorced last year. His voice was flat. This isn't the first time. Jake, I'm so sorry. It gets worse. He scrolled to another message. She specifically mentioned using you as the babysitter so no one would question where she was. I felt sick. Has she done this before? Used me as cover? Jake nodded slowly. I've been suspicious for months. Random girls' weekends, mom retreats, and work events that never quite added up. Credit card charges from hotels when she was supposedly staying with friends. He looked up at me. Every time I questioned anything, she'd tell me I was being paranoid, that I should be grateful you were so willing to help with the kids. She told you I volunteered? The pieces were falling into place, every single time. Said you kept offering because you loved being the fun aunt. He shook his head. I should have known something was off. The kids would come back from your place, talking about movies you'd never seen and places you hadn't taken them. I leaned back in my chair, memories flooding back. That time last summer when she said you two had a romantic weekend for your anniversary. I was working a construction job in Boulder, 60-hour weeks. And Christmas 2 years ago when she said you both had food poisoning. I was home with the kids. She told me you'd invited her for a sister's shopping trip. The weight of years of manipulation settled over me. Jake, all this time I thought. I mean, she made it seem like you were in on it, that you both needed breaks from the kids. Jake's expression hardened. I never asked for a break from my own children. Ever. We sat in silence for a moment, processing the extent of Melissa's deception. So what happens now? I finally asked. Jake straightened his shoulders. First, you're coming to Thanksgiving. I'll handle the kids myself. Second, I need your help figuring out exactly what she's been up to. You want me to spy on my sister? I want the truth. For me, for the kids. He hesitated. And for you too, Katie. She's been playing us against each other for years. I considered refusing. Getting involved in my sister's marriage problems seemed like stepping into quicksand. But I couldn't ignore what I'd just learned, that my sister had been systematically lying to everyone, including me. Okay, I said finally. What do you need me to do? Jake's plan was simple. He would call my parents and explain that there had been a misunderstanding about Thanksgiving childcare. He'd tell them he was perfectly capable of watching his own children and that I had never actually been asked to babysit in the first place. Won't Melissa just deny it? Let her try. I've got the text evidence now. True to his word, Jake called my parents that evening. I couldn't hear their side of the conversation, but his calm, authoritative tone left little room for argument. Yes, Bob, there's been a mix-up. No, Katie was never asked to help with the kids. I'm their father. I'll be taking care of them. Yes, we definitely want Katie at Thanksgiving. Great, I'll let her know. An hour later, my mother called. Your brother-in-law says there was some confusion about Thanksgiving, she said, her voice lacking its usual warmth. Yes, there was. A pause. Well, we'd like you to come, of course. No apology. No acknowledgement that they'd uninvited their own daughter based on Melissa's lies. Thanks, Mom. I'll be there. The night before Thanksgiving, Jake texted asking me to come over after Melissa went to sleep. It was nearly 11 p.m. when I quietly let myself into their house with the spare key he'd given me. I found something, he whispered, leading me to their home office. On the computer screen was Melissa's email, open to a confirmation for a train ticket to Chicago departing at 4:15 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day. She told everyone she's making a quick run to pick up a special dessert, he said, his voice tight with anger. She's packed a weekend bag and hidden it in her car trunk. I checked. What are you going to do? He showed me an app he'd installed on her phone while she was in the shower. Location tracking. I need to know exactly where she goes and who she meets. Jake, are you sure about this? I mean, legally? It's my phone plan, he said flatly, and I need evidence for when I talk to a lawyer. The word lawyer hung in the air between us. You're thinking about divorce? His eyes met mine, resolute and sad. I'm thinking about my kids growing up with a mother who uses them as props in her elaborate lies. I'm thinking about you being manipulated for years. I'm thinking about all of us being collateral damage in whatever game she's playing. He closed the laptop. Yeah, I'm thinking about divorce. I drove home that night with my mind racing. Tomorrow I'd be sitting at a Thanksgiving table with a family that had cast me as the villain, while the real betrayal was still unfolding. And somehow, I'd become allies with my brother-in-law in a plan to expose my own sister. Thanksgiving morning dawned crisp and clear, a perfect fall day that felt at odds with the knot of anxiety in my stomach. I arrived at my parents' house clutching a store-bought pumpkin pie, steeling myself for the cold reception I expected. My mother opened the door, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Happy Thanksgiving, dear. The house was filled with the familiar chaos of holiday preparation. My brother Tyler and his wife Rebecca were arguing good-naturedly about football in the living room. My younger sister Sarah was setting the table with my grandmother. The kids were running through the house in various states of holiday dress, and there was Melissa, picture perfect in a burgundy sweater dress, directing everyone like a general overseeing troops. Mom, the turkey needs basting. Dad, can you please keep the kids out of the kitchen? "Sarah, those napkins are folded all wrong." She spotted me and paused momentarily before plastering on a smile. "Katie, you made it." She gave me a quick, perfunctory hug. "Would you mind watching Emma for a sec? She keeps trying to touch the hot stove." Just like that, not even 5 minutes in the door and already being handed childcare duties. "Actually," Jake appeared beside me, "I've got Emma. Katie just got here. Let her say hello to everyone first." Melissa's smile flickered. "Of course. I just thought since she was right here." Jake ushered Emma away, giving me a subtle nod. I circulated through the house, exchanging awkward greetings with family members who clearly had heard different versions of why I'd almost missed Thanksgiving. During the family breakfast tradition, cinnamon rolls and coffee while the turkey cooked, I noticed Jake and Melissa barely interacted. She was putting on a show of maternal dedication, cutting pancakes into tiny pieces for Tommy, wiping Max's sticky hands, loudly asking if anyone needed anything every few minutes. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. She just texted him that she'll be leaving at 3:30 to pick up dessert. Train at 4:15 confirmed. I glanced up to see Melissa watching me. I quickly put my phone away and smiled innocently. The morning progressed with forced normalcy. I was chopping vegetables in the kitchen when my cousin Emily cornered me by the refrigerator. "Okay, what's really going on?" she asked in a low voice. The tension in this house could cut glass. "What do you mean?" "Come on, Katie. First I hear you're not coming because you refused to support Melissa during her marriage troubles with Jake. Then suddenly you're back and Jake's acting like super dad. Something doesn't add up." I nearly dropped the knife I was holding. "Wait, Melissa told you I refused to support her marriage troubles?" Emily nodded. "She called me in tears last week, said you told her you didn't want to get involved in her and Jake's problems and that's why you wouldn't watch the kids." Another lie. The web was getting more tangled by the minute. "Emily, that's not what happened. At all." I figured. Melissa's stories always seem to change depending on who she's talking to. Before I could respond, Lily, Melissa's 9-year-old, appeared at my side. "Aunt Katie, can I help you chop?" Emily drifted away as I set Lily up with a butter knife and some soft celery stalks. "Mom said you didn't want to watch us anymore," Lily said after a moment, her eyes focused on the celery. "She said you were supposed to take us to your apartment for 3 whole days while she went on her special trip." My heart sank. "What special trip, sweetie?" Lily shrugged. "I don't know. She was packing a bag in her closet and told me it was for her special trip, but I wasn't supposed to tell Daddy." I tried to keep my expression neutral. "When did she tell you this?" "Last week. She said you promised to have a sleepover with us at your apartment, but then you changed your mind because you didn't love us enough anymore." Her bottom lip trembled slightly. I put my arm around her small shoulders. "Lily, that's not true. I love you and your brothers and sister very much. There was just a mix-up about the plans, that's all." She seemed skeptical but nodded. "Is that why Mom and Dad are fighting? Because of the mix-up? What makes you think they're fighting?" "They yell at night when they think we're asleep. And Dad sleeps in the guest room sometimes." Out of the mouths of babes. I hugged her tighter, wishing I could shield her from what was coming. As family members continued to arrive throughout the morning, I noticed another strange pattern. Multiple people asked about my new boyfriend and why he hadn't come to Thanksgiving. "I heard he's not good with family gatherings," my Uncle Paul said sympathetically. "Melissa mentioned he's very private," my Aunt Susan added. I forced a smile. "There's been a misunderstanding. I'm not dating anyone right now." Their confused expressions told me yet another of Melissa's lies had been circulating. By early afternoon, the house was full of extended family. The turkey was roasting, and Melissa was in full performance mode. The devoted mother, the perfect daughter, the gracious hostess. She moved through the house with practiced ease, all while checking her phone constantly. Jake caught my eye from across the room and subtly held up 3 fingers. 30 minutes until her planned departure. As family gathered for the pre-dinner prayer, Melissa suddenly spoke up, her voice catching with emotion. "Before we begin, I just want to say," she paused dramatically, "I need to step out briefly. After we eat to pick up a special pie from that bakery downtown. It's only open limited hours today, but I promised the kids their favorite dessert." She smiled tearfully. "Family traditions are so important, aren't they?" My father nodded approvingly. "Don't be too long. We'll save you a spot for dessert." 20 minutes later, as everyone began filling their plates, Melissa made a show of checking her watch. "I should run now before they sell out," she announced. "Jake, honey, can you make plates for the kids?" Jake nodded pleasantly. "Of course." She grabbed her purse and then paused by my chair. "Katie, would you mind keeping an eye on Tommy for me? He's been trying to climb on things today. I'll only be gone an hour." Before I could answer, Jake stepped in. "I've got the kids, Mel. Katie just sat down to eat." A flash of annoyance crossed her face, quickly replaced by a smile. "Of course. I'll be back before you miss me." As she hurried out, Jake caught my eye and nodded slightly. 5 minutes later, his phone rang. "Excuse me," he said, standing up. "Work emergency. Need to take this." He stepped out onto the patio, phone to his ear in what looked like an intense conversation. I knew there was no call. My mother frowned. "Everything all right? Both of them leaving during dinner?" "I'm sure it's fine," I said, trying to sound casual. Jake mentioned they might have a work issue come up. As the meal continued, my phone buzzed with updates from Jake, following her. Not headed to any bakery, going north toward the train station. 10 minutes later, she's at the station. Parking now. 5 minutes after that. Got photo evidence. She's meeting someone. Man in his 40s, brown hair. They're boarding together. I tried to focus on my dinner while processing what was happening. Around me, conversation flowed. Football. Played on the TV, and kids complained about Brussels sprouts. But all I could think about was Jake, alone in his car, photographing evidence of his wife's betrayal. As time passed, my parents began to notice Melissa's extended absence. "Didn't she say she'd be an hour?" my father asked, checking his watch. "It's been almost 2 hours." My mother tried calling her, frowning when it went to voicemail. "Maybe there was a long line at the bakery?" "On Thanksgiving?" my uncle questioned. "What bakery is even open today?" I watched as concern gradually replaced irritation. My mother called 3 more times. My father suggested driving to the bakery. The kids asked repeatedly where their mother was. Just as panic was setting in, Jake returned, his face grim. He pulled me aside in the hallway. "She's gone," he said quietly. Boarded the 4:15 train to Chicago with him. I got photos of everything. The suitcase she'd hidden. The 2 of them together on the platform, boarding passes in both their names. My stomach dropped. "What now?" Jake squared his shoulders. "Now we tell everyone the truth." "Jake, are you sure?" "The kids are already in the basement watching movies. This family has been manipulated long enough." He walked into the living room, where the adults had gathered in concern over Melissa's absence. His confident stride and serious expression immediately silenced the room. "I need to talk to all of you," he said, "about where Melissa really is right now." The living room fell silent as Jake stood before my family, his shoulders squared and jaw set. My parents exchanged worried glances, clearly expecting news of an accident or emergency. "Is everything okay?" my mother asked, her hand fluttering to her throat. "Did something happen to Melissa?" Jake took a deep breath. "Melissa isn't at any bakery. She's on a train to Chicago right now." Confusion rippled through the room. My father frowned, shaking his head slightly. "Chicago? That doesn't make any sense. Why would she go to Chicago on Thanksgiving?" Because she's been planning this trip for weeks, Jake said, his voice steady despite the emotion I could see building behind his eyes. She's meeting someone there. A man. The implications hung in the air for a moment before my mother laughed. Nervously. Jake, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Melissa wouldn't just disappear on Thanksgiving, especially not without telling anyone. Jake pulled out his phone. I wish that were true, Patricia. He tapped the screen a few times, then handed it to my father. On the display was a photo taken from a distance. Melissa, weekend bag over her shoulder, standing on a train platform beside a tall man with brown hair. They were leaning into each. Other, his hand resting comfortably on the small of her back. My father's face drained of color. He passed the phone to my mother, whose hand trembled as she held it. I don't understand, she whispered. Who is that man? His name is Eric Winters, Jake replied. Melissa's college boyfriend. They've been seeing each other for at least 6 months. My Aunt Susan gasped. The one who got divorced last year? I remember Melissa mentioning him. Jake nodded grimly. That's him. There has to be an explanation, my father insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Maybe they ran into each other by coincidence. With matching weekend bags? On Thanksgiving? My brother Tyler scoffed. Come on, Dad. Jake retrieved his phone and pulled up another screen. These are text messages between Melissa and her friend, Tanya, from last week. He read them aloud, his voice growing tighter with each word. The messages detailed Melissa's excitement about her Chicago weekend with Eric, her plans to use me as the unwitting babysitter, and her delight in manipulating the family into uninviting me when I refused. My relatives looked at me with dawning horror. Sarah, who had been among the most critical when I declined to babysit, covered her mouth with her hand. Katie, I had no idea, she said. She told us you were being selfish and... God, I'm so sorry. Jake wasn't finished. He pulled up, a map on his phone showing Melissa's current location, moving steadily westward along the train route to Chicago. I've been tracking her movements. She left the house with a suitcase hidden in her car trunk. She met Eric at the station. They boarded the 4:15 train together. They have a hotel reservation for the entire weekend. How do you know all this? My Uncle Paul asked. Because I'm not an idiot, Jake snapped, his composure cracking slightly. I've suspected something was going on for months. Credit card charges from hotels when she claimed to be at mom retreats. Mysterious weekend trips. Constant texting that she'd hide whenever I entered the room. He scrolled through his phone again. I installed tracking software on her phone yesterday. Here's the confirmation email for their hotel reservation, a suite at the Drake. And here's a reservation for dinner tonight at Maple and Ash. Very romantic. Very expensive. My mother had begun to cry silently. My father put an arm around her, his expression hardening. And there's more, Jake continued, turning to face the room fully. This isn't just about an affair. It's about years of manipulation and lies that have affected all of us, but especially Katie. He gestured toward me, and suddenly all eyes were on me. Melissa has been using Katie as free childcare for years, telling her that I knew and approved of these arrangements. Meanwhile, she was telling me that Katie was eagerly volunteering to watch the kids because she loved being an aunt. His voice broke slightly. Neither was true. She told us Katie refused to help because she didn't care about family, my mother said quietly, realization dawning on her face. And she told me you all knew I was being manipulated but sided with her anyway, because she's the one with kids, I added, finding my voice at last. A heavy silence filled the room as everyone processed the extent of Melissa's deception. There's a financial component too, Jake said after a moment. He pulled up bank statements on his phone. In the past 6 months alone, she's spent over $7,000 on hotels, restaurants, and gifts related to these meetings with Eric. Money that was supposed to be going toward the kids' activities and our mortgage. My father stood up, his face flushed with anger. I'm calling her. Right now. She won't answer, Jake said. She's turned off notifications from everyone except Eric and Tanya. But my father was already dialing, putting the phone on speaker as it rang. To everyone's surprise, Melissa answered on the fourth ring. "Dad, what's up?" The sound of a train in the background was unmistakable. "Where are you, Melissa?" my father demanded. A slight pause. "At the bakery, like I said. There's a long line." "Don't lie to me," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "We know you're on a train to Chicago." Another pause, longer this time. "Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter who told us. What matters is that you've abandoned your family on Thanksgiving to meet another man." "How could you do this?" Melissa's voice turned defensive. "It's not what you think. Eric's just a friend who needed support during a difficult time. I was going to tell everyone, but—" "Save it," Jake interrupted. "We've seen the texts, Melissa. We know everything." A sharp intake of breath. "You went through my phone? That's illegal." "So is using family funds to finance an affair," Jake shot back. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Melissa's voice returned, now calculating. "Jake, listen, we can talk about this when I get back. I'm sure we can work something out. There's no need to involve my parents." "Your parents are already involved," my father said. "Your entire family is involved because you made us all complicit. In your lies. You turned us against Katie. You used us." "Katie?" Melissa's voice hardened. "Of course she's behind this. She's always been jealous of me, of my family. She probably made up half of this just to turn you all against me." Jake had heard enough. "You have a choice, Melissa. Get off at the next station and come home right now to face your family, or continue to Chicago with Eric and be cut off. Financially, emotionally, completely." "You can't do that," she sputtered. "Those are my children. My family." "The same children you abandoned on Thanksgiving? The same family you manipulated and lied to?" Jake's voice was ice cold. "Make your choice." The line went dead. My father stared at the phone, then looked up at the room of shocked relatives. She hung up. No one spoke for several long moments. The magnitude of what had just happened seemed to press down on all of us. Finally, my Aunt Susan broke the silence. "What about the children? Should we tell them?" Jake shook his head firmly. "Not today. Today we try to salvage what's left of their Thanksgiving. They don't need to know their mother chose." He swallowed hard. "Chose another man over them." He turned to me, his expression softening slightly. "Katie, I could use your help with them if you're willing. Not because you have to, but because they trust you." "Of course," I said, my heart breaking for my nieces and nephew who had no idea their world was about to change forever. As we tried to return to the dining room and salvage what remained of the holiday meal, the atmosphere was somber. The turkey had grown cold, the sides congealed in their serving dishes. But more than the food was spoiled, something fundamental had broken in our family, and none of us were sure it could ever be repaired. The days following Thanksgiving brought chaos, confusion, and a strange new family dynamic no one had anticipated. We did our best to give the children a normal holiday meal that night, though the strained smiles and forced conversation fooled no one over the age of 5. Jake focused entirely on making the day special for his kids, organizing games, serving dessert with theatrical flourish, and distracting them from their mother's unexplained absence. I stayed close by, helping where I could, my heart breaking each time one of them asked when Mom was coming back with the special pie. "Your mom had some things to take care of," Jake told them gently. "Sometimes grown-ups have unexpected problems to solve." It wasn't until the next morning, as I helped Jake make pancakes for the children in my parents' kitchen, that Lily asked the question we'd been dreading. "Is Mom in trouble? Is that why she didn't come back last night?" Jake knelt down to her level, his expression carefully controlled. "Why do you think she might be in trouble, sweetheart?" Lily fidgeted with her pajama sleeve. "Because everyone was whispering after she left. And you and Aunt Katie look sad. And Grandma was crying. I watched as Jake struggled to find words that would protect his daughter while not adding to the web of lies that already surrounded these children. Your mom needed some time to herself, he said finally. Sometimes adults need that. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you. But it was Thanksgiving, Max chimed in, his 7-year-old face scrunched in confusion. I know, buddy, Jake said, ruffling his hair. I know. Later that day, while the kids were watching a movie with my parents, I discovered Melissa had been crafting her own narrative on social media. Her Instagram stories showed old photos of family Thanksgivings with captions about cherishing quiet, moments at home with my beautiful family. Anyone looking at her social media would think she'd spent a cozy holiday at home rather than on a train to Chicago with her lover. She's unbelievable, I said, showing Jake the posts. He looked away. From the screen, his expression hardening. Classic Melissa. Image is everything. My youngest sister, Sarah, was still struggling to process the revelations about Melissa. Despite the evidence, she hovered between denial and anger. Maybe there really is an explanation, she said as we cleaned up the kitchen that evening. Maybe Eric really did need her support for something legitimate. With a hotel suite and dinner reservations, I countered. Come on, Sarah. People make mistakes, she insisted. We shouldn't judge her without hearing her side. Jake overheard this exchange and stepped into the kitchen, his phone in hand. If you want Melissa's side, here it is. She just posted this 10 minutes ago. He showed us a Facebook status update from Melissa. Sometimes mental health has to come first. Grateful for special friends who understand the pressure of being a mother with depression, taking a much-needed respite to heal. Mental health matters. Mom needs breaks too. She's playing the mental health card, I said disbelievingly. Of course she is, Jake replied. She's rewriting the narrative already. By the time she comes back, she'll expect sympathy, not accountability. The next morning, Jake asked me to help him organize some financial documents at his house. What I found shocked even me. Melissa had been systematically draining money from accounts set up for the children's college education. She told me she was transferring funds to higher interest accounts, Jake explained, showing me the withdrawal records. But the money never arrived anywhere. When I questioned it, she said I was financially controlling and didn't trust her. How much are we talking about? Almost $40,000 over the past 2 years. I sat back, stunned. Jake, that's not just an affair. That's theft. From our children, he added quietly. As the weekend progressed, Melissa remained in Chicago but continued. Her social media campaign, posting vague, inspirational quotes about healing journeys and finding yourself. Her location tags were turned off, but the backgrounds of her photos were clearly hotel rooms and upscale restaurants. Meanwhile, her phone remained off to family calls. Jake's parents tried reaching her. My parents tried. Even our grandmother. No response. What are you going to do when she comes back? I asked Jake as we prepared lunch for the kids on Saturday. I've contacted a lawyer, he said quietly, making sure the children couldn't hear. I want full custody. After this, I can't trust her. With them. She'll fight you. Let her. His expression was resolute. I have documentation of financial mismanagement, abandonment, and more lies than I can count. No judge would look favorably on a mother who disappeared on Thanksgiving to meet her affair partner. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Jake's phone rang with a call from Ashley Williams, a woman I recognized as one of Melissa's former close friends who had mysteriously fallen out of favor a few years earlier. I saw Melissa's posts about mental health, Ashley told Jake, her voice hesitant. I wanted you to know, this isn't the first time she's done something like this. What do you mean? Jake put the call on speaker so I could hear. 3 years ago, she told me her sister was watching the kids while you two had a romantic weekend in Denver. But I ran into Katie at the grocery store that weekend, and she had no idea what I was talking about. When I confronted Melissa, she turned everyone in our friend group against me, saying I was jealous and trying to cause trouble in her marriage. By Sunday, more stories had emerged. Former friends called Jake with similar tales, Melissa borrowing money for non-existent medical bills, spreading rumors about people who questioned her stories, creating elaborate lies to cover her tracks. "It's like we're uncovering a completely different person," I said to Jake after yet another revealing call. "The scary thing is, I think this is who she's always been," he replied. "We just didn't want to see it." Late Sunday evening, my parents' doorbell rang. Jake and I were still there, having dinner with the kids and my family. My father answered the door to find Melissa standing on the porch, alone. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the redness around her eyes, and her designer outfit seemed out of place in the context of what we now knew. "I'm home," she announced, as if expecting a warm welcome. My father stepped aside wordlessly to let her in. One by one, the adults in the family gathered in the living room. The children were already in bed, exhausted from the emotional confusion of the past few days. Melissa looked around the room, clearly sensing the ice-cold reception. Her eyes landed on me. "I should have known you'd use this opportunity to turn everyone against me," she said, her voice dripping with accusation. "You've always been jealous of my family, my life." "That's enough, Melissa," Jake said firmly. "Katie has been helping me care for our children while you were off with Eric in Chicago. You don't get to attack her now." Melissa's expression shifted, tears welling in her eyes. "I made a mistake, okay? I've been struggling with depression and feeling trapped. Eric was just a friend who understood what I was going through." "Stop lying," my mother said, her voice uncharacteristically hard. "We've seen the evidence, Melissa. We know this has been going on for months. We know about the money you took from your children's college funds." Melissa's facade cracked slightly. "I was going to pay it back. It was just temporary." "Like your trip to Chicago was just for dessert?" my father asked coldly. For the next hour, Melissa cycled through a range of tactics: tears, accusations, minimizing, deflecting blame. She claimed I had manipulated Jake into spying on her. She suggested Jake had been emotionally unavailable, forcing her to seek comfort elsewhere. She insisted her mental health issues were to blame for her poor judgment. Nothing worked. Each excuse was met with evidence of her deliberate planning, her calculated deception. Finally, Jake stood up. "The children are asleep upstairs. Tomorrow morning we're going home. You can stay at your parents' tonight. I don't want you in the house until we've had a formal discussion with lawyers present." "Lawyers?" Melissa's voice rose in panic. "You can't be serious. You can't keep my children from me." "I'm not keeping them from you," Jake replied calmly. "But I am protecting them from your lies and manipulation, just like I should have done years ago." As Melissa dissolved into tears, I watched my family trying to process this new reality. My mother looked torn between comforting her daughter and maintaining the boundary we'd all finally established. My father stood firm, his disappointment palpable. Sarah had retreated to a corner, her former defense of Melissa abandoned in the face of such overwhelming evidence. I caught Jake's eye across the room, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw a glimmer of hope. The truth, painful as it was, had finally set us free. The weeks following Thanksgiving unfolded in a blur of difficult conversations, legal consultations, and a new family dynamic none of us had anticipated. Jake moved forward with divorce proceedings, focusing primarily on securing full custody of the children with supervised visitation for Melissa. Melissa, for her part, continued cycling through excuses and explanations, each one more elaborate than the last. In a particularly painful confrontation at my parents' house, she tried everything from blaming work stress to claiming Jake had emotionally neglected her. "If you had been more attentive, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for support," she told Jake, tears streaming down her face. Support doesn't include emptying our children's college funds or lying to your entire family, he responded calmly. You're twisting everything, she cried, turning to our parents. Mom, Dad, you know how hard I've worked as a mother. One mistake shouldn't erase all that. My father, who had always been Melissa's strongest advocate, surprised us all with his response. This wasn't one mistake, Melissa. This was years of calculated deception. You manipulated all of us, turned us against Katie, and abandoned your children on a family holiday to meet another man. These aren't impulsive errors. They're choices that reveal character. His words seemed to hit Melissa harder than anything else had. For perhaps the first time, she couldn't find a way to reframe the narrative in her favor. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Jake arranged for the entire immediate family to attend a session with Dr. Lauren Bennett, a family therapist who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Melissa initially refused to attend, but ultimately agreed when Jake made it clear that her cooperation would reflect well in custody arrangements. The session was grueling. Dr. Bennett created a safe space for everyone to express their feelings, without interruption, but she also insisted on accountability. Melissa, she said gently but firmly after hearing everyone's perspective, I'm noticing a pattern in your responses. When confronted with evidence of your actions, you immediately deflect responsibility or portray yourself as the victim. This is consistent with certain personality patterns that make healthy relationships very difficult. What are you saying? Melissa asked defensively. That I'm crazy? Not at all. But based on what I'm hearing, you display several traits consistent with narcissistic personality disorder. The grandiose sense of self-importance, the need for excessive admiration, the lack of empathy for how your actions affect others, especially your children. The diagnosis landed like a bomb in the quiet office. It wasn't an excuse for Melissa's behavior, but it provided a framework that helped the rest of us understand what we'd been experiencing for years. Can it be treated? My mother asked hopefully. With commitment and extensive therapy, individuals can learn to manage these traits, Dr. Bennett explained. But the first step is acknowledging the pattern, which is often the most difficult part. Melissa sat in stunned silence, then gathered her purse and left without another word. In the parking lot afterward, Jake turned to me. I need your help with something important. Anything, I said. I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow about custody arrangements. I need documentation of all the times Melissa lied about childcare or left the kids with you under false pretenses. Dates, times, what she told you versus what she told me. I nodded, already mentally cataloging years of incidents. I'll write everything down tonight. As December unfolded, I found myself stepping into a new role in my nieces' and nephews' lives. Not as the occasional babysitter or the aunt who brought presents at Christmas, but as a consistent, supportive presence during the most chaotic time of their young lives. Aunt Katie, why does Mom live at Grandma's house now? Emma asked one evening as I helped her with a holiday craft project. I chose my words carefully. Your mom and dad are taking some time apart to figure things out. Both of them love you very much, but grown-ups sometimes need to live in different places to work on themselves. Is it because Mom went on her trip during Thanksgiving? Lily asked, her perceptiveness both impressive and heartbreaking. It's complicated, sweetheart. There were lots of things happening before Thanksgiving. Max looked up from his drawing. Dad doesn't yell anymore since Mom left. He used to yell a lot when they whisper fought. These glimpses into the children's perspective reinforced the importance of creating stability for them. Jake and I established regular routines, with me coming over several evenings a week to help with homework and bedtime rituals. Meanwhile, the legal process moved forward. Melissa had hired an aggressive attorney who advised her to fight for full custody, despite her obvious disinterest in the day-to-day responsibilities of parenting. Jake's lawyer, armed with financial records, documented instances of abandonment and statements from various witnesses, built a compelling case for primary custody. The financial aspect proved particularly damaging to Melissa's case. Her unauthorized use of the children's college funds constituted a breach of fiduciary duty that concerned the court. Jake worked with a financial advisor to create a recovery plan, and I offered to help review the documents given my background in business administration. I had no idea how bad it was, I told Jake one evening as we pored over spreadsheets at his kitchen table after the kids were asleep. She's been systematically draining accounts for over 3 years. Jake nodded grimly, all while accusing me of being financially controlling whenever I questioned where money was going. By mid-December, Melissa had begun supervised visitation with the children. The first few visits were tense, with Melissa alternating between lavishing the kids with gifts and subtly interrogating them about life with Jake. Mommy asked if Daddy has any friends who come over at night, Lily reported after one visit. And if you sleep over, Aunt Katie? Jake documented these inappropriate questions, adding them to the growing file for the custody hearing. As Christmas approached, we faced the challenge of creating new traditions. The children were confused about where they would spend the holiday and whether their mother would be there. Jake suggested hosting a second Christmas celebration at his house the weekend before the actual holiday. We'll invite everyone, my parents, your parents, siblings, cousins. We'll start fresh with new traditions the kids can help create, he explained. Then they can spend Christmas Day with Melissa at your parents' house without feeling like they're missing out on family time. The idea took root. The children helped plan games, choose a menu, and decorate the house. When the day arrived, it felt like a healing moment for our fractured family. Melissa wasn't present, but her absence created space for genuine joy and connection. My mother pulled me aside during the celebration. I owe you an apology, Katie. For years, I believed Melissa's version of events without questioning. I let her turn me against my own daughter. Mom, you didn't know. I should have known, she insisted. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them, because it was easier to believe you were being difficult than to face the possibility that my other daughter was manipulative. Her acknowledgement meant more than I could express. Slowly, these honest conversations were rebuilding trust within our family. On Christmas Day, as agreed, the children spent time with Melissa at my parents' house, with Jake dropping them off and me picking them up. When I arrived, I found Melissa in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone while my mother supervised the children opening gifts. They're ready to go, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Melissa looked up, her expression unreadable. You must be happy with how everything turned out. You've got Jake and the kids now, the perfect little family you always wanted. I took a deep breath, refusing to be baited. This isn't about winning or losing, Melissa. It's about the children having stable, honest adults in their lives. Save the sanctimonious speech, she snapped. I know what you think of me. You don't. Actually, I replied quietly. I think you're someone who could benefit from the help Dr. Bennett offered. I think you could still be a good mother to your children if you were willing to do the work. And despite everything, I still hope you will for their sake. I gathered the children and their new toys, helping them bundle up against the winter cold. As we headed to the car, Lily turned to wave at her mother standing in the doorway. Bye, Mommy. See you for New Year's. Melissa waved back, a flicker of something, regret, perhaps? Crossing her face before she composed herself and went back inside. 6 months later, on a warm June afternoon, I helped the children plant a family garden in Jake's backyard. Lily carefully placed tomato seedlings in the soil, while Max constructed a miniature scarecrow. Emma and Tommy scattered wildflower seeds along the border. Daddy says these will grow all summer, Lily explained seriously. And in the fall, we can make sauce from our own tomatoes. That sounds wonderful, I said, smiling as Tommy patted the dirt with determined concentration. Jake joined us, setting down a tray of lemonade. How's it going, gardeners? Aunt Katie showed me how to make sure the roots have enough space, Max reported proudly. I caught Jake's eye over the children's heads, sharing a moment of quiet satisfaction. The path to this peaceful scene had been painful, but necessary. Melissa was now living permanently in Chicago, seeing the children on a bi-weekly schedule that worked better for everyone. Her court-mandated therapy seemed to be having some effect. Her communications were more consistent, less manipulative, and she had stopped attempting to triangulate family members against each other. The children were thriving under the new arrangement. Their nightmares had subsided, their school performance had improved, and they spoke more freely without the constant fear of saying the wrong thing. As for me, I'd discovered strengths I never knew I had, standing firm against manipulation, even when it wore the mask of family obligation, had been terrifying but liberating. The boundary I'd set that fateful day before Thanksgiving had been the first domino in a sequence that ultimately freed us all from a toxic pattern years in the making. "You know what we should plant next?" Jake asked, sitting beside me as the children debated the perfect spot for a bird bath. "What's that?" "Pumpkins. For Thanksgiving pie." He smiled. "I think it's time we reclaimed that holiday, don't you?" I nodded, watching the children create something new and beautiful from the earth. "Definitely. Real pies this time. No mysterious bakery runs required." We laughed together, the sound blending with the children's chatter and the birdsong overhead, a harmony of healing that had seemed impossible only months before. What would you do if the person who betrayed your family was the one you'd trusted most? How far would you go to protect those who remained? If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share for more family drama narratives that explore the complicated bonds that both unite and divide us.